Shalom, beloved, and welcome to another edition of Real Talk with Yehuda. Now, today, I want to briefly speak on a highly controversial topic amongst the community of Yasharal. And it seems that we're divided about, I don't know, just from my estimates, what I've seen, my personal experience, seems like we're divided about 70% to 30%. Now, this topic is about Esau, Edom, Caucasians, and who is Edom today. Now, we have about, from what I've seen in my experience, about 70% of the brethren of Yasharal, and they use some language that I particularly don't use, but they call the quote-unquote white man the devil, and Esau and all of that stuff, and Edom. And then you have about 30% that says, no, Esau's not white at all. Esau has zero to do with the Caucasian people. Now, what I always say is this: let's not speculate. Let's not argue amongst one another. Let's not use obscenities. And let's not insult one another. You have people, if unlearned, let's not do all of that. Let's simply look into the word of the Most High, and let's see if there's a revelation for us, if there's a revealing of a mystery for us. And what I believe is that you're going to find there is a mystery concerning Esau. There's a mystery concerning Esau. It's not just so simple. Now, I'm going to flip the camera around here, and we're going to take a look at the Book of Jasher. For those who don't understand, if you of Yasharal, you should know about the Book of Jasher. For some who may be still in the Christian walk, you should be familiar with at least the mentioning of Jasher from from other quote-unquote Bible passages which mention the Book of Jasher, and one in particular in the Book of Joshua. There's an incident that happens, and the spirit of Elohim, the Ruach, points out to us in a particular passage that we need to go and read the Book of Jasher to get further information about some things going on. Now, I'm going to point our attention to the Book of Jasher, starting at chapter 60. Now, I know in a lot of my videos, I don't really just point out an exact scripture or anything like that, because I feel like it's your responsibility to go and you study to show yourself approved. You spend that time with Yahuwah. You spend that time in the Word. So a lot of times I don't give you an exact scripture. Sometimes I might mention a book, but for the most part, I'll just say the scriptures tell us. And then I'll say, whatever the subject matter is, because I feel like that's part of studying to show yourself approved, right? Like, you are supposed to be able to rightly divide the word supposed to be able to rightly divide the word of truth and understand certain things. And with that being said, none of us have all of the answers. The prophets didn't have all the answers. They were given pieces of the puzzle. The apostles who walked with Mashiach didn't have all the answers. In the book of Revelation, and I'm going to pause on a second to go on a sidebar there. So many times people say, my daughter is like trying to swing me around in the hammock. Okay, hold on, princess. All right, all right. Okay, hold on. All right. Kind of threw off my train of thought a little bit, but we all good. In the book of Revelation, and what I was saying, I want to go on a sidebar. Get her, please. I want to go on a little sidebar briefly. It's the book of Revelation, not Revelations. And I hear people all the time saying Revelations, such and such. That's just a little pet peeve for me. I just thought I'd point out. So please, people, it's Revelation, not Revelations. So that was my little sidebar. Now let me get my place back here in the scriptures. I have my place, but it's all good. Let me get back to my place here that I had in the scripture. Now, I'm going to flip the camera around and I'm going to show you starting here in the book of Jasher, book of Jasher, starting at chapter 60. Now, I hope y'all can see that. I'm not sure if I'm getting it, 100% on. Let me see if I can flip it around a little bit so I can see, make sure that y'all are seeing the passage properly. Okay. Now, I'm going to read this beginning of the passage here in Jasher chapter 60 verse 1, and it reads, "And when the year came round, being the 72nd year from the Israelites going down into Egypt, after the death of Joseph, Zeppo, the son of Eliphaz, the son of Esau, fled from Egypt, and he and his men, and they went away." Now, what you're going to find here, I just want to point out a couple of things. You're going to continue for 12 chapters from Jasher chapter 60 through Jasher chapter 72. The scripture is going to keep on mentioning to you, like it does here again in verse 6. "And Zeppo was in those days very great in the sight of Angeas and in the sight of all his people, and he continually enticed them to make war against Egypt." And it keeps going, and then it comes down and it lets you know, "And it came to pass in those days, there was in the land of Chittim." Now, when you start to understand about the land of Chittim and all of this stuff, these are descendants of Japheth. This is where we get the quote-unquote isles of the Gentiles, where you would have Greece, Italy, Italia, Great Britain, etc. Children of Chittim, Javan, various tribes and clans that are in these areas. Now, what you're going to find out, if you read through this entire part, what you're going to find out is that Zeppo, and I'm going to show you right here so that people can understand exactly what's going on. I'm going to jump over here to chapter 61, and I'm going to jump to verse 23, and I'm going to show you a couple more passages here. Now, hopefully you guys were able to see that. If not, open up your word and read for yourself. And let you know that there was a revolution, basically a war that was going on in what was called Africa. Now, understand at the time, Africa was not the entire continental landmass of what we call Africa. Africa was one particular region. It's approximately what we call like Libya today. Approximately that area is what was known as Africa. And that's right there on the Mediterranean. You have Egypt and the quote-unquote region of Africa, and you have the isles of the Mediterranean, the isles of the Gentiles, the children of Chittim, etc. Now, what you're going to see is they go into the land of Chittim. And Zeppo, son of Eliphaz, he gets involved here. And you get to verse 24 here. This is the Book of Jasher, chapter 61, verse 24. And it lets you know, I'm going to show you one more time. And the children of Chittim saw the valor of Zeppo. And the children of Chittim resolved, and they made Zeppo king over them. And he became king over them. Now, Zeppo, son of Eliphaz, the firstborn son of Esau. Esau is Edom. So through Esau's firstborn bloodline, one of Esau's grandsons by the name of Zeppo, who's mighty in battle and warfare, as the scriptures let us know that Esau will conquer by warfare and will subdue the earth, and he'll have all the wealth of the earth by means of warfare. It's letting us know right here in the book of Jasher that the children of Chittim made Zeppo king over them, and he became king. He reigned over them, and while he reigned, they went to subdue the children of Tubal and all the surrounding islands. And their king Zeppo went at their head, and they made war with Tubal and the islands, and they subdued them. And when they returned from battle, they renewed his government for him. And they built for him a very large palace for his royal habitation and seat, and they made a large throne from him. And Zeppo reigned over the whole land of Chittim and over the land of Italia 50 years. Now, I'm tired of people who somehow they must not have read their word. They must not be in the spirit. I don't know what's going on, Yasharal. I don't understand what's going on. How people miss an entire chunk of scripture that details why we can say that the quote-unquote Caucasian, the quote-unquote white man is Idumea, is Edom, is Esau. It tells you right here in this scripture that Zeppo became king over all of those islands, over all of Italia. That includes Rome. And I know a lot of people say, oh, well, the scriptures say Rome is in power in these days. Yeah, I know Rome's in power. Rome is Esau. The children of Chittim, Tubal, all surrounding areas fell under Esau's government. They became one. They ceased from being separate nations. They became one nation. So yes, they are Edom, Esau, Edomites. When we look at other passages in the scripture, and this is for you to go do your homework, it tells you exactly the characteristics of Esau. He's going to be steeped in the occult, occultic symbolism. Eliphaz, Esau's firstborn son. A lot of people like to bring up Hebrew word studies. Let's do a Hebrew word study on Eliphaz. Eli, my God, Phaz, gold. Eliphaz. Esau declared by his firstborn son that gold is his God. Scripture lets us know that Esau will go under the symbol and the banner of the eagle. All the way from Rome, all the way to the good old US of A. Flying the banner of the eagle. Steeped in occultic symbolism. Egyptian obelisks, pyramids, all over the place. Just as the scripture said, because of our disobedience, we would be brought into Egypt again by ships. Just as the scripture said that in these last days, Esau would be reigning and ruling. And the scripture goes so far as to give us details how this happened. So when we get into other prophecies, I don't understand how somehow we like all of a sudden we shut down and like we don't understand certain things. So example, I'm gonna give you. There's some of us that understand in the scripture when it's talking about the harvest or it's talking about wheat and things like this. We see this in the Torah dealing with the feasts. And we see this same pattern of the Most High in a parable from Mashiach. And what we see in the parable with Mashiach is with the wheat and the chaff, right? Now we know that it's not actually talking about the physical wheat. Most High don't care nothing about that. But it's talking about us. And how the Most High is going to separate the good from the bad, the righteous from the unrighteous, the wheat from the chaff, the wheat from the tares. All right, we understand that. We understand that sometimes scripture uses idioms, metaphors, similes. Sometimes it'll talk about trees. But we're supposed to be able to understand it's not always talking about an actual tree. We're supposed to understand that the righteous will be planted like trees by rivers of water, bearing fruit. So the righteous are wheat, the righteous are trees, the righteous are like sheep. There's other examples. I don't understand why we don't understand other examples about Idumea, about Esau, about Edom. He's steeped in the occult. He's going to be ruling the world in the last days. How does he rule the world? Warfare by the sword. What's his symbol? The eagle. He sets his nest among the stars. I don't understand how we don't see these symbolisms. Sometimes the scripture will go as far as to call us as Yasharal, Jacob, Israel. Sometimes it'll break it down and say the house of Jacob, the house of Israel, the house of Judah. And we understand those things. But somehow when it comes to talking about Esau, somehow we don't understand that in one particular scripture, it might mention Ashkenaz. Sometimes it might mention Chittim. Sometimes it might mention Tubal. Sometimes it might mention Javan. Why do we not understand that? But we understand Jacob, Israel, house of Israel, house of Judah, trees, wheat, tares, etc., etc., etc. We understand these things, but then when it comes to Esau, it's like we shut our brains off. When it comes to Esau, it's like we don't go seek the Most High in fasting and prayer so that he can reveal things unto us, when you really don't even have to try to fast and pray that hard. You could just simply open up your word, study your word, and it gives you details about how that's Edom. So maybe when one passage it mentions Chittim, but it already told you that Zeppo, the son of Eliphaz, son of Esau, already conquered those lands, established his government, established a huge palace, ruled it 50 years until he died. That became Edom. And as you continue reading through the passages and stuff, it tells other details. And then Zeppo goes to his other brothers, who was, basically the king of Edom, because Zeppo wasn't the king of Edom. He's an Edomite, and he took those other lands and he was king over those lands. But basically he just joined those lands with his brothers, who was the other king of Edom. So the same way that there's tribes of Israel, please believe and understand, Esau got tribes. Esau got tribes, and his tribes is ruling in different parts of the earth. So you got Great Britain, you got Rome, you got Germany, Ashkenaz, you got the good old US of A. All these different factions, when in reality, when we understand with spiritual eyes, they just different tribes of Esau. So we need to get out of our opinions, and we need to get out of our feelings, and let's just let the word of the Most High speak. Let's let the word of the Most High speak, because he's let us know in details. And for everybody, I know there's brothers that have Apocrypha, they have different translations, different versions, 1611 versions, they got Sefer Bibles, all of this stuff. My question is, what's the point of you having those? Did you get it just because it was a collector item? Did you get it because it was cool? Or do you actually spend time before the Most High studying his word? Because none among Yasharal should be confused that that's Edom. That's Esau. There shouldn't be any confusion. It's right here. You don't even have to go into different historical books. Some people go into historical books and then they'll tell you, Idumea, blah, blah, blah. And they're right. They're true. But I'm showing you an example that you don't even have to do that. You can make it more simple, and you can stick right to the word. So for people to have a Sefer, well, guess what? Enoch, Jubilees, Yashar, that's right there in the Sefer. You could do like I do, and I purchased it separate, where it just has those 3 books. There's other translations that have them. And we can't sit there and try to discredit it and say, oh, well, that's not in the Torah of the prophets. Well, yeah, it is, because that's in the other scriptures where it tells you, by way of the Ruach, that you need to go and read these books, because these books are being directly quoted, or they're being directly mentioned, saying, go read it so that you can get the truth. So with that being said, hopefully we can be on one accord, and we don't have all of this he say, she say about who Edom is. Now when I say that, I don't say that to abhor an Edomite, right? And abhor don't necessarily mean that you have to hate. That means that you could be like showcasing them in a negative way, or that you speaking about them negatively. which, like I said, I don't use those obscenities. I don't do those things. But it's not abhorring to point out who's who. Are we abhorring Yasharal by pointing out, nah, we're Yasharal? Here are the prophecies. And we know that the prophecies are being fulfilled by us waking up and returning unto Yahuwah. So in like manner, we can also say, hey, we have the scripture right here to let us know so that we can understand the time we live in. We can understand that the day of Yahuwah is at hand. We can understand how to make wise choices and to navigate and to walk by the Spirit, understanding who we under. So while we're in this Egypt, while we're in this captivity, and Esau has basically his foot on our throat, we need to move in a manner that understands that, hey, look, I might have to move in a particular way, or I might have to deal in a particular way, because guess what? Under this current system, Esau the man, he running this system. But that's where we look to Yahuwah, and we know that our salvation is in him. We know that our salvation is in Mashiach. We know that our salvation and our righteousness is because we walk after the ways of Yahuwah. So we don't have to worry about what we see right now. This kingdom coming to an end. We know that the scripture tells us Esau is the end of the world. Jacob is the beginning of that which comes after. So let's get on one accord. Let's hold to what's true. And let's continue to seek Yahuwah in fasting and prayer. Because I know a lot of brothers study or start to learn Hebrew and these different things, but not doing the proper fasting and prayer so that Yahuwah can show you. And as I've said in another video, if Yahuwah chooses to open the mouth of a donkey and give you the truth, it don't matter if it's a donkey or not. That donkey don't know no Hebrew, but a donkey can speak. So as we parts of the body, maybe I'm only the sole of the foot. That's fine. I'd rather be a doorkeeper in the house of Yahuwah than to dwell in the tents of the wicked. So if Yahuwah chooses to open my mouth to speak, get the truth. But yo, it's been real. This has been Real Talk with Yehuda. Shabbat Shalom, beloved. And I'll see you in another edition.